Hello guys, in this presentation I'd like to show you how to use the greetings.jar file that we talked about in a previous video with the BlueJ IDE, how we use that with BlueJ. Now I'd like to show you how to use that with Eclipse. So make sure that you download greetings.jar and then you can copy that somewhere to Eclipse. I would suggest that you keep your own files separately, your own extensions separately. So so maybe you want to call it like personal libraries, okay, and keep it with Eclipse, okay. So at this point we are ready to make sense out of that, and you're gonna see that Eclipse is gonna be a lot more flexible than BlueJ. So I would recommend that you do move to BlueJ away from, move to Eclipse away from BlueJ if it's all possible. Okay, so let's start Eclipse, and we're gonna start a new project. We're gonna call that practice. Okay. So within this practice, we can create our own application, and we said it's gonna be simple app. Okay. Create the main function. So the whole idea is that we try to create a professional looking application, right? So it's in blank. Okay. So we have a simple application, okay, and we can see how it runs, and you're gonna see that it's pretty simple, right? So there is no welcome message and no thank you message for running the applications. So that's why we're using the greetings.jar file. So everybody gonna be consistent. So eventually we said that we have to create the professional looking application, and we modified this to something like that. Right, so we have Java doc strings showing the author and the version, and also for the methods, every method we have that. And now we have problem because we cannot find these classes. And this wasn't just a problem that we couldn't find it, but we did not have the documentation for these classes. So with BlueJ, we had to extract the documentation from the jar file and then navigate the documentation outside the IDE. Okay, so it is gonna be much simpler in Eclipse. So when we look at the project itself and then we go to the project properties, okay, we need to look at the Java build path, and here's our libraries. Now what we want to do is we want to add an external jar file. So when we click on that, now we're going to navigate to our folder where we had our jar file. So now we have our jar file. Okay. So when we say OK, now all that goes away. And now we should be able to run the application. Okay. Let me fix this. Okay, I need to have a different version of Java. Okay, so I just had to recreate the greetings.jar file with the older version of Java. my desktop has the older version of Java, so that's why I was getting an error message. Anyway, so now you can see that you can practice what does it mean to import a custom jar file, how to work with custom jar file. So with the welcome class, okay, we are using the welcome class without the path, the absolute path, because we use the import. While when it comes to appreciate class, we did not import it because we are using the absolute path. Okay. So anyway, it's pretty nice. The only problem is that I don't really see what I can do with this particular class. So if I look at WMSG dot, okay, you can see that there is a message or a print message that is my interpretation, my method, because it's coming from the welcome class. And then you can see that it has an overloaded toString method that I can also use, right? So Eclipse gives you this real-time help, this IntelliSense that senses the class itself and pulls out what methods, what you can use, what you have access to basically within the class, but it's still not a full-blown documentation. So that's what we were talking about, that let me just align it. So what we were talking about is the reason that we need all this documentation is because we have to refer to that. That's really the strength of Java, is documentation. So if I don't have a documentation to refer to this class, to read about this class, it's not going to be very much helpful. So what we can do is go back to the properties. Okay, here's my jar file. And when I look at the Java doc location, when I created the Java doc, or the jar file, I also included the documentation within the jar file. So it has all the classes that this jar file works with or contains, and all the documentation for each one of those classes. So when I click on the location, okay, we can actually say it is the Java doc is in the archive, which is our external jar file. So now we can navigate to it, okay, and within the jar file, this is the documentation location, okay. So we validated that it is a location of the documentation, okay. So now we say okay again, and now when we go to welcome, okay, now we get the documentation, and if we want to, we can open up the whole documentation. So we don't need to extract the documentation from the jar file. Now we have direct access to that jar file, so we can go through the different methods and different constructor and see how can we use these classes, or how can we use these different methods. Okay, so it should be very easy to use, much easier to use than it was in BlueJ. So now when I go to, let's say, my course and go to the methods, you can see that all the methods are static. So that means info1 and info2, we do not have to instantiate a class in order to use them. Okay, and now I feel more comfortable that there is a method, a static method called info2 that I can use, and now it is saying COSC 2436, which is the second Java course. Okay, So now you can be very consistent because you just are using the same jar file for all of your assignments, and that way you are very consistent with your application, welcoming and thank youing users. Okay, and at the same time you learn how to use third-party jar files, and hopefully all this relative and absolute path to the classes will make sense. So it should be a good learning experience for you guys to set up your environment this way and be not just consistent with your programming, but it might be even a little bit more professional because you have all the documentation, and now you also have a consistent messaging to your users as well. I hope I hope you're gonna find this beneficial, and I hope you're gonna benefit out of this, and you're gonna be using this particular jar file in your future applications. See you next time.